Guyana's economy is the fastest growing economy in the world, and it is driven by a boom in the oil sector. This has caused a massive transformation in this tiny nation of about 800,000 people. But this boost in the oil sector has brought about some problems to Guyana as Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, has escalated long-standing claims over the Essequibo region, which makes up over 70% of Guyana's territory. How will this tiny nation circumvent this crisis? Will their economy continue to thrive amid chaos? Join us as we explore the new oil capital of the Western world. The rise of the Guyana economy. Before the rise of Guyana's economy, Venezuela once experienced a similar economic boom decades ago, but it was brought down by years of corruption and abject mismanagement of the world's largest oil reserve. Now, walking through the streets of Georgetown, it might not even for a second cross your mind that you're in the capital of the world's fastest growing economy. While major construction projects are ongoing at the moment and oil executives flooding into the city, there is still a long way to go in terms of public infrastructure and public services. Decades of little to no investment in education is a major part of the reason why the Guyanese populace is unprepared for the highly skilled jobs required for oil industries. But because of the oil found, this will bring them more opportunities, and also these oil companies need workers, and they will turn to the local populace. But for other high-skill requirement jobs, they will likely bring in people from outside the country. About half of the Guyanese population lives abroad in the country because right from history, opportunities in the country were quite limited. But now with the oil boom, the country is expected to receive an influx of Guyanese people, ready to embrace the opportunities that now swarm the land. Some Guyanese, like Sebastian de Freitas, is one of those returnees, and he currently works with ROV pilots for offshore oil platforms. According to him, since he's come back, he's seen how rapidly the change has been occurring around here. He wants to be a part of it. He wants his people to embrace it, and he wants his people to benefit from it. One thing that's very clear amongst the Guyanese currently is the change, or rather the shift in their mentality. For most of the almost 60 years since it's declared its independence from Great Britain, Guyana has been one of the poorest countries in South America. But now, this poor nation is set to produce more oil per person than anywhere in the world. Right now, its reserves stand at more than 11 billion barrels and counting, as that is a figure that is fast growing. But the transition from drought to plenty is something that many countries do not handle very well. Will Guyana also fall victim to the paradox of plenty? The paradox of plenty. Massive natural resources and health are always good news. Countries have discovered massive oil reserves are prone to this paradox, Venezuela, Nigeria, etc. The sheer amount of natural resources discovered in these countries enabled the breeding of corrupt, maniacal leaders. This chart here shows that countries that were overdependent on oil exports experienced slower economic growth after that initial burst of growth in the economy. This is partly because the more money flows into an economy to buy oil, the more expensive the country's currency becomes, making other exports more expensive as well. Before the discovery of oil, Guyana's economy generated just $11,000 per person each year. Now its GDP has surpassed that of Italy, and on its current trajectory, it could overtake the United States at the end of the year. The other problem that comes with a large influx of money into the economy is the risk of inflation. A lot of people are stressed out because the cost of living keeps rising, and while it could be argued that opportunities abound in the land now, it is good to remember that the average city man or woman does not have the skills to take advantage of these opportunities. And it is them that'll bear the brunt of inflation. The equal and the unequal. With this newfound wealth in Guyana comes the risk of deepening inequality tied to ethnic divisions. The nations with the Indo-Guyanese population largely occupied the 10% of wealth at the top of the food chain, whilst Afro-Guyanese occupied the bottom 90%. The Guyanese people have mixed feelings about the profits that are reaching them. Those who are getting the jobs in the oil industry seem more optimistic. Delroy McLean works at a construction site near one of Georgetown's poorest neighborhoods. Speaking, he said that he grew up on the wharf, so it's his home, his backyard, and his playground. Financially, Delroy is in a much better place to help his family and also to help himself. The people of Guyana, now more than ever, need leadership that acknowledges that the society is a difficult one and some cleavages can't just be eliminated by government spending. How Guyana could beat the resource curse. The country that has been best managed to beat this resource is Norway. After oil and gas were discovered in the North Sea in the 1960s, Norway eventually set up for itself a sovereign wealth fund. In other words, it took most of its riches generated from oil and invested it. The funds now own an average of 1.5% of every publicly traded company in the world. By investing most of the proceeds abroad, the money did not directly flow into the Norwegian economy. Meanwhile, no hyperinflation and no massive strengthening of the Norwegian krone. And when the oil and gas eventually run out, the country will find itself sitting on a pile of wealth that'll ensure the prosperity of future generations to come. Is it possible for Guyana to copy the Norwegian style? Well, the answer is now exactly. Norway was already a fairly developed economy when it found oil. It had railways, factories, and a strong education system. Guyana is a tiny economy in the grand scheme of things, and for the most part, lacks the sort of infrastructure that could be found in Norway then. Although Guyana is already trying to develop its infrastructure and is invested in creating new opportunities and creating opportunities for the expansion of the economy, Guyana has to strike a balance between investing in necessary infrastructure and diversification, but at a sustainable pace. The president says he's aware of the risk. The country does not have a natural resource fund, but there are concerns about the rules governing it, which may be put to test in recent years. One concern is the mere size of the government that it's growing. The economy is largely an oil economy, but diversification is going to be more difficult than it was before. But for now, it's boom time in Guyana. And with the boom of oil comes a feud with a jealous rival in South America, Venezuela. The Guyana-Venezuela feud. Essequibo started as a colony of the Dutch and was founded by colonists from the first Zealandic colony, Pomeroon, conquered in 1581, which had been destroyed by the Spaniards and local warriors around 1596. Led by Jules van der Hooge, the Zealanders traveled to an island called Kickover Owl near the Essequibo River, a tributary called the Mazaruni. Dutch colonizations of the Guianas occurred primarily between the mouths of the Orinoco River in the west and the Amazon River to the east. In 1658, cartographer Cornelius Goliath created a map of the colony and made plans to build a city there called New Middlesbrough. But the Second Anglo-Dutch War of 1665 to 1667 put an end to these plans. Essequibo was occupied by the British in 1665, along with all other Dutch colonies in the Guianas, and then plundered by the French. The following years, the Zealanders sent a squadron of ships to retake the area. While the Suriname colony was captured by the English by Abraham Christensen, the by then abandoned Essequibo was occupied by Mattisburg and Aar. After 1745, the number of plantations along the Demerara River and its tributaries rapidly increased, resulting in the Demerara colony. Particularly, British colonists from Barbados began settling there. After 1750, a commander of the British population was assigned, giving them their own representation. Around 1780, a small central settlement was established at the mouth of the Demerara River, which received the name Stabroek in 1784, named after one of the directors of the West India Company. The long-standing territorial dispute over the Essequibo region escalated into a crisis in 2023. The region's controlled by Guyana, but is claimed by Venezuela. The dispute dates back many years, and the current border was established by the Paris Arbitral Award in 1899. Venezuela renewed its claim in 1962, and the matter was referred to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, in 2018. Significant oil reserves were discovered offshore in the 2010s, which raised the stakes. In September 2023, Guyana granted drilling licenses in the disputed waters. In December 2023, Venezuela held a referendum of its people asking whether the region should become a state of Venezuela and its population become citizens, among other questions. Although the turnout was reported to be low, the Venezuelan government declared that the results showed overwhelming support for such action. Venezuela then took further steps to press its claims, such as publishing maps showing the territory annexed to the country and announcing plans to develop the region. In response to Venezuela's actions, other countries supported Guyana's position, including Brazil, the UK, and the US. Brazil sent troops to its border with the region, and the US conducted military exercises with Guyana. The ICJ warned Venezuela not to take any direct action in the region as a trial is scheduled for early 2024, and the Mercosur Regional Group urged the parties to find a peaceful solution. On 14 December 2023, Ralph Gonzalez, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, hosted a meeting of the leaders of Guyana and Venezuela as an initiative of the Community of Latin America and Caribbean States, which he currently heads. Officials from the Caribbean Community, Brazil, Colo, Zambia, and the United Nations also attended. The leaders agreed to not use any force or escalate tension. A joint statement said that both countries would settle the dispute in accordance with international law, despite adding that Venezuela does not recognize the jurisdiction of the ISJ. Further talks in Brazil are expected by April 2024. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and check out another of our interesting videos.